is that us with the set? We'll go back over to the examples, Julie.
Yes, perfect.
So I'll just stay in this mode just now. I won't have to go full screen for it, but just to show you, for reference, I won't take you through all of these. The tools we're going to look at today, primarily Jamboard for our examples, but you can do all of those activities and even some more like voice recording with OneNote. The activities will work across both, but what I've done is put in links to the videos showing you how these tools work. So if you've not used OneNote or you're not sure how to do what we've done with Jamboard with OneNote, we've put a wee short bite-sized video of a couple of minutes that you can watch, and that will hopefully help you build a picture of how to do that. Put a link to screening shots, just again to save you having to find it if that's not coming up for whatever reason. And just as an alternative, it's not quite the same, it's not maybe quite film literacy, but I thought well worth sharing. Again, we've seen the recent equity report that says that younger learners in particular might be disadvantaged with having to access online systems. So WordWaves from BBC is available without any logging in required, so that might be suitable for learners that are early level or at the sort of start of first level or with particular support needs. And what Julie did is Julie and I recorded a short video here about how we could use that to teach comprehension, and those WordWaves are all available, am I right, as a written text and a video and an audio. Is it video and is there an audio as well, Julie, or is it just a video?
Yeah, there's three. The first one is illustrated, so it's got the word wave itself, and then the second one picks out the key vocabulary, so it actually uses some text, and then the third one is a storytelling, it's a sharing session. So yeah, there's three different options available, George.
Yeah, brilliant. And I thought it works in a very similar sort of purpose of a different mode of text, and as we say, we've put in a short lesson or example of activities you could use for a lesson as well, so hopefully that proves useful too. So if we were then considering how we would use this, how to use any film as a text, obviously we're going to look at Baboon on the Moon. We'd be looking at finding user information, and again, this is something that we've explored in the digital learning and teaching team, is about how you convey that information, and all the research points to being as clear and concise as you possibly can. So some of the bits you can see, I'm still referring to learning attention and success criteria as we would in the classroom. I've put in an example of what learners are going to see for their activity, so I'm using dual coding. So if I was explaining to you as my class that this is what we're going to do, we're going to do a grid analysis, you're going to make notes about characters, settings, puzzles, events, you can see what I'm talking about as I'm talking about it, and I've not just got a wee picture of Baboon on the Moon, because that might not be the information that you need to see as a learner. So trying to think about dual coding, and you can read more about dual coding on our Learning Paths page at DigiLearn Scott. So we're going to watch the film here. We're going to ask you to join in and take some notes, and then we can have an opportunity to look at how those notes and understanding help us to find and use information, how we've found and used information from the text, and how that will help us develop our understanding. I've put a link here as well. You can follow, if you get the slides, you can click the link or scan the QR code on another device. And just some research that Julie and the team, the literacy team, shared with me when we did our first set of webinars, and I think they're so important to what we do in digital learning and teaching, because most of the text that we'll access will be on a screen. So I've put a link there to some research by Alex Quigley, and that's really informed my digital practice about considerations for asking learners to use digital texts. So what we'll do is we'll show you the film, and then we'll ask you in a moment to join us on the Jamboard. Whether you've got another device, you can scan that QR code, or I will just copy and paste the link across to the chat in Teams, and you can join it via the chat in there, and then I'll get the film up. So I see Miss Gold saying not get any audio. You might have to leave and that's exactly what I was going to say. Right, there's Julie and Darren, both got suggestions. Always good to see people coming up with those suggestions, and good to see you as well, Darren. So films for the classroom, we're going to look at Baboon on the Moon. Julie and I thought, hopefully you'll see from the context, and we might well look at doing some, Julie spoke about that before, during and after. You might want to make some predictions before you watch it, but what we'll do is we'll show you the first minute of the film, and you can think about any of the points. As I say, sorry, just before I do show you the film, I'm just going to recap on what the headings were. So we were going to look at, where were they? We're going to look at the characters, the setting, the events, and any puzzles or questions you still have after watching the clip. So having a think about those, I can see there's about 20 odd folk on the Jamboard already. That's great. I'm going to recommend, if you're going to do it as the film is on, if you've got a separate device, please use the post-it notes, and you could colour code your post-it note to this section you're putting in. So if you're talking about characters, please put it in a blue post-it note and put it in that section, and that will help to organise our thinking. And I'll show you the film.
Yes, can.
So stop the video there. I'm going to come across the Jamboard and see if we've got any thoughts or ideas that people have maybe considered as they watched that clip there. So did anyone, any characters that were in the film that you would take note of? Anything about the setting? Again, events and puzzles or questions. So if I give you just about a minute or so, if anybody wants to pop any thoughts onto the Jamboard. I'll get started just to make sure that is working. Yep, so it is. So I've got moon under setting. Someone's added dark, so that's can go put that under the setting. Somebody's got a question about the moon. And for me, I've used Jamboard for a few examples for this. It's certainly a tool that I like. It's got quite a clean, easy to access interface. But I really like the post-it note activities, and again being able to drag and order those to show thoughts and ideas. Now again with Jamboard, just as people are putting their examples up, when you share a Jamboard, you have the options under the get link. So it's automatically set within your local authority, which Education Scotland is technically mine, so it will only be learners or people within your authority that can access it. You want to change that probably to anyone with the link. Obviously it means they don't have to sign in to Glow to access it like we've done with you today, but the only way they're going to get that link is through you sharing it, so presumably that's going to stay within Glow. You can keep it to your local authority, and you're probably only sharing it through your Google Classroom or your Microsoft Teams. So that local authority link might well work, but I'm just thinking if you've got perhaps younger learners that are finding logging into Glow challenging, you might want to consider that. You have to switch it to editor from viewer. So again, if you want to share a worked example, you might have a model of what this will look like. You can keep it stuck to viewer, and then the learners can look at it, but they can't edit it. And again, editor will give them access. You've got to copy that link and then share that wherever you share your links to learning. So if that's in Classroom or Teams, see, I've set it anonymously, so you can come in, you can see the people accessing it are anonymous. You've got anonymous animal names. If your learners are logged in through Glow, it will tell you the learner's name, so you can see as they're doodling on the board. I can see up here it's got their wee character, it would have their initials. You can again, we're using this collaboratively to sort of get ideas from across the group, but you can also share it through Google Classroom, and it will create a copy of the Jamboard for every learner. So if for assessment purposes, you probably want each learner to do their own version of this, you can do that through Google Classroom in the assignments, and we've got a video all about how to do that as well, so I won't explain that just now. Julie, have you got anything to add or ask about any of the examples we've got? Or?
No, I mean, I think this is just one of the ways that we can encourage children to take notes and maybe do it in an interactive way and allow them, it's very, I quite like the anonymous part of it because, you know, people won't feel too much under pressure. They can add their ideas, feed off what other people are saying as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as well, just while we're on the Jamboard, you can also draw on it with the pen. So you could draw a picture of the baboon here, if that was how you wanted to respond to it. You can add images, and or you could just write on it. If you've got a touchscreen device, you could just write with your finger on the screen. And again, it gives learners different ways to add to this. They can add an image, and they can add that from their computer. They could draw a picture on a bit of paper and take a photograph. Now, it's not selecting my camera just now because I've got it turned on in Teams, but they could use their mobile device to take a photograph of a picture that they've drawn, or they could make a painting, anything at all to respond to this text. They could do it in the physical real world and photograph it and upload it to their Jamboard, and also you can use Google to search for it. So you could find baboon on the moon, and it will hopefully bring up images. It's got images of baboons there, so it might have to go and find one and save it to your device, but you could easily put one of these in to explain your thinking. All of those you can do as well with the OneNote tool, and I'll show you an example of OneNote in a moment. But for me, the reason I've asked you to use Post-its is just because when we're sharing it, it makes it a wee bit easier. If everyone's handwriting, it can get a wee bit messy. So that's some thoughts to consider there. Another one that we put on is, again, because we can upload an image really easily from my device, I've just captured that using the Microsoft snipping tool on my Windows. I've used snipping tool, I've paused the film, taken a snip of it, put that in, and we could ask learners to label the picture, so what are the different parts of it, or indeed they could even draw their own picture of the baboon and then start to label the parts. So we'll leave, again, you've got access to this Jamboard, and you can have a look through and look at some of the examples that we've put on about how you could do the remembering. I don't know, do you want to go through those thinking skills, Julie? Is that?
Yeah, so when I looked at the website, I had to think about some of the different suggested activities and what would lend itself to remembering. So we came up with a couple of suggestions here. I've got use a clip of the soundtrack only, take some notes or draw some illustrations to help you to visualise what's happening in the story. So I popped that in as a post-it, and then George has put underneath how he thought we could do that digitally. So George, you want to?
Yeah, so just on each page, I've put some examples. Again, they're not definitive, just a starter for 10. And again, more than happy if people want to add examples onto this page if you've got others to add to that. We're seeing lots of people using the PowerPoint recorder to create perhaps tutorials for the learners, and you can do the same thing with the screen. And because the films are copyright free, if you capture any of the elements in it, then that's okay to do. They've been cleared for that. One of the really good analysis or making predictions for the film, I think, and it talks about it on the site, is showing learners the film with the screen off but only the audio. So again, you could use your PowerPoint recorder to record just the audio and ask learners to listen to the audio and make predictions about what they think is happening without seeing it. And it's incredible, in my experience, the power of those auditory cues and to be able to pick the film apart just by listening to it. Made reference as well, you could use other devices, so Keynote, for example, with an iPad. And again, if you know your learners have got access to iPads, that if you're an authority that's perhaps issued them, that might be an app you want to use as opposed to PowerPoint. Must say as well, just with PowerPoint, it has got to be the Windows version. It won't, so it's got to be the desktop version. It won't work with the online one. Again, we did some of those worked examples for remembering. Again, some of the, I've mentioned again, any, Julie's put those examples about creating and capturing things, and most mobile devices will allow you to record with video. So again, even if it's just a learner recording themselves or acting out a part, you've then got again things like iMovie and animation apps or Book Creator. There are other external apps that are available and free to use that can be really useful for learners to create things quickly and easily. Stop motion, yeah, absolutely. So if you've got anything popular, I'm not sure what that is, so maybe come back to that, and whoever's popular in, be great to know a wee bit more about that. But I think we'll go forward with just showing again some of the examples. We've already done this collaborative Jamboard, so again, if they're discussing why they think something's unusual, if they're each putting on different examples, that could be the point you use to scaffold some discussion. As I say, for me, I'd probably be doing this in a flipped learning environment where they've watched the film, they've added their thoughts onto a Jamboard or made notes somehow, and then perhaps at the end of the week, when everyone's had an opportunity to watch the film, hopefully, we might have an online conversation. And again, I can share my screen as I'm doing just now with the learners, and I can say, this is a really good point here. What do we think? Why do you think someone's written that? Or do you agree with this? And a really good activity I've seen done with Jamboards is you can just get learners to tick the ones that they agree with. So if lots of learners are ticking certain ones, it's showing you they perhaps think that's a better idea, a more solid idea, so or just their preferences. But you can get them to tick ones that they like. So if someone's already put up their idea, they can tick it, and that sort of shows you the thinking of your class. Again, seeing lots of the same ones coming up again, and I think that's really important. Things like Slides, Keynote and PowerPoint, really powerful tools that can be very adaptable. And again, thinking about maybe the ideas on PowerPoint, the ideas tool, if you've not used it, Designer on PowerPoint and ideas on Google Slides will create a kind of a design for you. So you could upload a picture of the baboon, some text, and it will create a nice looking slide. And Julie suggests that might be a name plaque for the baboon, or a bio, or a social media profile, anything like that.
George, we'll make these slides available to people afterwards. So if we're moving through it quite quickly, we might have a chance to go back later on. But if we don't, then we'll have these available afterwards. Absolutely,
yep. And then with the analysing, and I thought you made a really good point when we spoke about that, Julie, that a lot of the digital tools make it really easy to create things. And what we quite often do, and I know I'm certainly guilty of it, is I love to use Jamboard and OneNote to make notes and help me do my remembering and understanding. And then I always think about how can I use digital tools to create things. So you see, again, lots of the same ones. Book Creator's up again. We talked about animations already for remembering, and all these different platforms, including Jamboard, can be used right across the whole breadth of thinking skills. So I think it's really good that Julie split up some of the activities by the thinking skill, and then hopefully you can see some of the use. Again, even going into music, and again, that's one of the advantages with digital platforms. Lots of free apps and platforms available, particularly with the iPad built in. I've put Chrome Music Labs because it's browser based. So any mobile device should access that. And I also thought as well about when we're thinking about can you find out what makes the moon glow? There's a link there to, apart of this, Google Earth, they have a moon. Wouldn't load for me the other day. The bottom one is, you can view photographs of the moon that Google have mapped, and you can, just like Google Earth or Google Maps, you can view a map of the moon, which again, it just takes us to a place that learners perhaps couldn't have gone before. The Google Earth moon wouldn't load for me the other day, but there was a link from Google saying that you can do a kind of walking tour of the moon. So if that is available, I think something that'd be really powerful for learners. Or again, perhaps going down more of a creating than an accessing route, they could make their own model of the moon using Minecraft as a response to this text. I just want to move on just through these quickly because we've got another wee activity we're just going to talk about in the evaluation part of the thinking skills. And do you think we'll show another wee clip of the film, Julie? I think we've got time, and then we can talk about the picture there.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
again, I'm aware we're just jumping through a couple of parts of the film. It's definitely a film I'd recommend watching. I found it enjoyable, and I think certainly speaks to the time. So hopefully you can see the image on the screen there, and again thinking, what can we draw? What can we take from watching the clips of the film already about the feeling? How might the character, and I hope that picture's kind of captured that there. So again, even if learners, again, I think considering accessibility and asking learners to watch a film over and over again, if they've got perhaps limited access to the internet, they might only get one or two shots of watching the film if they're using a mobile device, and that could be using up a lot of data. So I think it's something we can also consider about using images from it, and that's going to use a lot less data to access this. So if this is on a PowerPoint or slides as well, they could be downloading that, and then they don't have to use their internet data again. So you can use images as well and ask them, what do you think the baboon is feeling at this moment, and what can we infer from the baboon's face? And Julie's also asked as well, how do you think the filmmakers achieved this? And I think that starts to go into the area of film literacy and understanding, how a filmmaker can use scenes and shots to give you clues as to what's happening. And we were speaking about it even just this morning, Julie and I, about the once you start to kind of read a film with those film literacy skills, it starts to give away some big clues to what's happening in the story. So it's a really useful skill, but I don't know if you've got anything to signpost for that, Julie.
No, I think depending on the age of your children, you might get into, the use of sound effects or camera angles, lots of different techniques. And that's where the Screen and Shorts website really comes into its own. There's lots of tips there that will help you to consider the techniques that the filmmaker has used and why, what the effect has been.
And I can see just here from whoever's put that up, it looks like a wee sparrow, a wee bird there, that they're feeling the empathy with the character, seems lonely, and that's perhaps coming from their movements and the way that the character holds themselves. So, and again, in my experience, I found that learners who were confident at accessing written texts engaged with this as well as they would with text, and they were able to make inference, skill they've already developed with written text as well. But what I found was my learners who perhaps found it harder to engage with or access written texts, their inference skills in particular were a lot better after watching a film, because they've perhaps got more experience of watching and listening either on screen or just in the world. So I found that learners were able to make inference a lot more confidently, learners that perhaps didn't offer written text. So that was certainly an impact I found that had. And again, it's a film. I think we all enjoy watching films, so there's certainly a part about engagement. Again, you can talk about the use of focus, as Julie said there. The more in depth you go, you could start to really analyse and evaluate the filmmaker's techniques. And this last wee point, just to talk about the thinking skills, I've put this one in a huge big post-it because I think it's the same points again you're hopefully seeing with animation, things like Book Creator, slides and PowerPoint, got lots of tools built in, and you could respond to any of those thinking skills activities that Julie's put on the slides with just about any of those tools. It really is about picking a tool that you're confident with and your learners are able to access. Again, if you're working in a local authority that's perhaps using iPads and the learners have got access to that, you've got GarageBand built in and they can create music or record a voiceover for the story themselves. Again, with the digital aspect of this, the films are copyright free. You're allowed to download the films from the website and then edit them. And I used to do an activity with my learners where they could download the film, use it on their the iPads in school. So they were sharing those devices, but they were able to remove the audio, and then they re-recorded the audio, and they could act out, they could add in dialogue, or they could turn it into a recount with a voiceover and someone commenting on the actions that you could see on screen. So it really opens up that creative end as well, that it's not just making a reproduction of the film, they can actually completely change it with those digital skills as well. So I'm thinking just with that, we've had a chance to interact with the tool. What I'd like to show you just very quickly is with OneNote, just as an alternative to Jamboard, in case you've not used OneNote before. I've done the exact same thing, except I've just for quickness, I've taken a screen snip of these from a Jamboard and copied them into OneNote. Works the exact same. Learners can insert text, so they can just click anywhere blank on the screen, create a wee text box, and they can start to write their answers in. The beauty with OneNote as well is they can dictate, so they can press the wee mic, and as I speak, OneNote will type the words that I say, full stop, new line, and I can even give it instructions like punctuation and taking a new paragraph, and that could be really useful again for learners if they're accessing this, say, on a mobile device. It might be hard to type. Would be thinking about a mobile phone if you try to type your answer, but if you can use the voice input on that, probably more likely through the dictate function on the mobile phone. But again, something to consider about accessibility. They can use the drawing tools to draw on it, so again they can write their answers, and they could draw things here as well. Get a touchscreen device, that'll be easier than me trying to use the mouse. But one of the ones I think is a real difference between OneNote and Jamboard is under the insert option, I can add audio. I think the main characters in the story, well, the only character really was the baboon, and you know, I wonder why there aren't other characters. Perhaps the filmmaker might add other characters, and that would cheer the baboon up. So that's some of my thoughts on the baboon, and it's captured as an audio recording. And the beauty with that as well is, as the teacher or educator, you're also able to insert feedback. So if this was Julie's learning, and I'm looking at Julie's notes here, she would, I would be able, as the teacher, just once this finishes rendering, I can tap again anywhere on the screen, use insert and audio. Julie, great job. You've really explained yourself well. Well done for adding some pictures in too. So I can give her audio feedback as well, and I think that's really powerful when we're thinking about effective assessment and using that to inform next steps. I'd say to my learners in class, what did I tell you last week? And they've got to try and remember what I told them, but if you're giving them recorded feedback, they're able to actually go back and listen to what you told them last week. And again, the same activity here below, I can add an image, insert picture, again from a file on my computer. I can use my camera, or if I can find it online. For this one, I've taken a screen snip using Windows snipping tool and just uploaded as a file from my computer. I can't use post-it notes here. One of the wee things that is sometimes worth considering if you're asking learners to collaborate is to put a table in and just ask them to pick a box. So just to insert their information on one box and not to write all over the screen, and that can help you to order some of the thinking. So it doesn't have the post-its, but it does have the audio recorder, which I think can be quite useful. And again, with the drawing tool, I can point out here, you know, looks sad. Okay, so we can add our thinking to the OneNote just the exact same as we can on the Jamboard. I think that's us covered the kind of tools part. I guess we'll just hand over, Julie, and see if anybody's got any thoughts or ideas on that, if you want to put them in on slide 11 in the Jamboard. And again, for the Jamboard, if you go up to the top, you can actually just jump between the slides a lot quicker here.